The rain had been falling since noon, turning the windows of Bellamy House into black mirrors. By 11:30, the dining room was almost empty. I balanced 3 untouched water glasses on a silver tray and tried not to think about the ache in my feet. 12 hours into a double shift, pain became background noise. So did hunger. So did the Arabic vocabulary cards hidden beneath the register, waiting for the 5 quiet minutes I never seemed to get. I was 26 years old, 6 months away from finishing my court interpreter certification, and 1 late tuition payment away from losing all of it. Claire. Mr. Dawson's voice snapped across the room. I looked up. He stood beside the kitchen doors, tightening his tie with nervous fingers. Private party. Table 12. My stomach sank. Table 12 was sealed behind smoked glass and velvet curtains. Politicians used it. CEOs. Men who never looked at prices. Kitchen is closing, I said. Not for them. He lowered his voice. Serve. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't listen. The last instruction made me glance toward the entrance. 4 men had just walked in. The first 2 moved like security. Broad shoulders. Dark suits. Eyes that measured exits before faces. The third man was older, with silver at his temples and a smile polished enough to hide whatever lived behind it. The fourth made the entire room feel smaller. Adrian Vale. I knew the name because everyone in the city knew it, even if they pretended they didn't. His companies owned buildings, shipping yards, restaurants, half the street where I rented my apartment. People said his influence reached places the law couldn't. He was younger than I expected. Mid-30s. Tall. Black coat. Controlled expression. The kind of stillness that didn't look peaceful. It looked disciplined. His gaze passed over the room once. When it reached me, it stopped. Only for a second. Then he entered the private section. I told myself not to care. Men like Adrian Vale didn't notice women like me. Waitresses were part of the furniture. We carried plates, refilled glasses, disappeared. That was usually a kind of safety. 10 minutes later, I stepped behind the curtain with a bottle of mineral water and 4 clean glasses. Adrian sat at the head of the table. The silver-haired man sat to his right. Marcus Kane, Mr. Dawson had whispered before sending me in. Mr. Vale's business partner. Across from them sat Samir Haddad, a shipping representative from overseas. His hands remained folded beside his plate. He looked calm, but the pulse in his neck said otherwise. I placed the glasses down. No one acknowledged me. Then Adrian spoke in Arabic. His pronunciation was precise. Educated. Gulf influenced, but not native. Tell me why the location changed. My hand paused over the final glass. Samir answered carefully. The location did not change by my order. Someone inside your organization redirected it. I came to warn you before tomorrow night. The words settled inside me like ice. Marcus leaned toward Adrian. He says there was a minor scheduling issue, he translated in English. Nothing that affects tomorrow. I almost dropped the bottle. Adrian's face didn't change. Ask him whether the transfer is secure, Marcus continued. Adrian asked in Arabic. Samir's eyes moved briefly toward Marcus. Then back to Adrian. No, he said. If you go there, you will not return. Marcus smiled faintly. He says everything is secure. My fingers tightened around the neck of the bottle. Maybe I had misunderstood. Exhaustion did strange things. Dialects did stranger ones. But not twice. I stepped away from the table, forcing my breathing to remain steady. Adrian was being lied to. Not by a stranger. By the man sitting closest to him. I reached the curtain. Behind me, a chair shifted softly. Then Adrian spoke again in Arabic. This time, his voice was quieter. Colder. And meant only for me. The waitress understood every word. For one breath, nobody moved. My hand stayed on the curtain. Behind me, ice clicked softly against glass. Then Marcus laughed. Not loudly. Not nervously. Like Adrian had made a private joke. She doesn't understand Arabic, he said. Look at her. I turned before fear could stop me. Adrian was watching me with the calm attention of a man deciding whether something was dangerous. His eyes were darker up close. Not black. Brown, almost amber beneath the low light. He spoke in Arabic. What did he say about tomorrow night? My throat tightened. I understood the question. I also understood the warning hidden inside it. Lie, and he would know. Tell the truth, and Marcus would know. I'm sorry, sir, I answered in English. Would you like more water? Marcus leaned back, satisfied. Adrian did not look away. Then Samir reached for his glass and said something under his breath. The transfer begins at midnight. The north entrance is compromised. Marcus translated immediately. He says the delivery has been moved to 1 in the morning. West entrance. That was not an error. Not a missed phrase. He had changed the time and the location. My pulse struck hard beneath my jaw. Adrian lifted his glass but didn't drink. Claire Bennett, he said. Hearing my name from him felt worse than a threat. I looked toward the closed curtain. Mr. Dawson was somewhere beyond it. So were the kitchen staff. So was the street. Normal life was only 20 steps away. But Marcus was now watching me too. How does he know your name? Samir asked in Arabic. Marcus's expression tightened. Just slightly. Adrian answered without taking his eyes from me. I make it a habit to know who enters a closed room. The air changed. I could no longer pretend I was invisible. Marcus folded his hands. Mr. Vale, we have wasted enough time. I looked at Samir. He seemed frightened now. Not of Adrian. Of the man beside him. Sir, I said. The word came out thin. Adrian waited. I forced myself to continue. He said midnight. The north entrance. Marcus's chair scraped against the floor. She's mistaken. No, I said. My voice shook, but I did not lower it. He also said the location was redirected by someone inside your organization. He came here to warn you. Samir closed his eyes. Marcus stared at me as if I had just stepped off the edge of a building. You studied Arabic from a textbook? He asked. Do you know how many regional expressions you could misunderstand? I know the difference between north and west. His smile disappeared. Adrian placed his glass down with deliberate care. Repeat Samir's first warning. I did. Every word. Then I translated it into English. Silence followed. Not empty silence. The kind that gathers weight. Marcus turned to Adrian. We have worked together for 14 years. You're going to question me because a waitress wants attention? The insult landed exactly where he intended. For a moment, I was back in every room where someone had looked at my uniform and decided it explained my intelligence. I expected Adrian to dismiss me. Instead, he asked, why would she choose this kind of attention? Marcus had no answer. Adrian's gaze shifted to Samir. You will remain in the city tonight. Samir nodded once. Then Adrian looked at Marcus. His face revealed nothing. No anger. No accusation. That frightened me more than either. Tomorrow proceeds exactly as planned, he said. Marcus relaxed. I didn't. Because Adrian had heard the warning. He knew the time was false. He knew the entrance was compromised. And he was still going. Our eyes met across the table. That was when I understood. He wasn't walking into the trap because he believed Marcus. He was walking into it to see who closed the door behind him. Marcus left first. He didn't look at me as he passed. That was worse. Samir followed between two of Adrian's men, his face pale beneath the restaurant lights. Within seconds, the private room felt too large for only two people. Adrian remained seated. I stayed near the curtain. Neither of us spoke. Outside, someone stacked plates in the kitchen. A faucet ran. Ordinary sounds from a life I had already begun to miss. "You should go home," Adrian said. I almost laughed. "Is that permission?" His eyes lifted to mine. "No," the single word settled between us. I reached for the curtain anyway. One of his men stood on the other side. Not blocking me exactly. He didn't need to. I turned back. "You said I should go home." "I said you should. I didn't say you could leave alone. I'm not one of your employees." "No," his gaze moved over my face with unsettling patience. "You're a witness." There it was. The word I had been trying not to name. I crossed my arms to hide the shaking in my hands. "I served water. I corrected a translation. That is all. That is enough." He rose. The room seemed to rearrange itself around him. He took a slim envelope from inside his coat and placed it on the table. "Your tuition. Your rent. 6 months of expenses." I stared at it. "You researched me." I prepared. For what? For the possibility that honesty would cost you something. The answer struck harder than I expected. Not because it was cruel. Because it wasn't. I pushed the envelope back toward him. "You can't buy what I heard." A faint change touched his expression. Not surprise. Respect. Most people would take it. Most people probably think money from you comes without strings. It doesn't. At least you're honest about that. For the first time, the corner of his mouth almost moved. Then it was gone. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I need to know whether Marcus changed only 2 sentences tonight. You think he has done this before?" "I think trust is expensive. I want to know what I paid for." He repeated several phrases from the meeting. Not full sentences. Fragments. A warehouse number. A delay. A reference to the second gate. I translated each one. Then he gave me a phrase Marcus had rendered as temporary inspection. I shook my head. That isn't what it means. What does it mean? Internal clearance. His stillness sharpened. I explained the difference. The grammar. The context. How the verb implied authorization from someone already inside the system. Adrian looked away for the first time that night. Not toward the door. Toward nothing. As if 14 years of memories had suddenly become evidence. I hated the flicker of pain I saw there. It made him human. That felt more dangerous than his reputation. "You believe me," I said. "I believe precision." "That isn't the same thing." "No," his eyes returned to mine. "But it is closer than I was an hour ago." A black car took me home. Adrian sat across from me in the rear compartment, silent while the city slid past in rain-streaked light. At my building, he told the driver to wait. "I can walk upstairs alone." "I know." He came anyway. The hallway smelled like old paint and someone's burnt dinner. My key was already in my hand when I saw the door. Open by 3 inches. I stopped breathing. Adrian moved in front of me without touching me. One of his men appeared from the stairs. They entered first. No shout. No struggle. Only silence. When Adrian finally let me inside, nothing looked disturbed. The television remained. My laptop sat on the table. The cash jar beside the sink was untouched. Then I saw the empty space near my bed. My Arabic notebook was gone. Adrian's face turned cold. Not angry. Certain. They didn't come to rob you, he said. I looked at the open drawer, then at him. They came to find out how much I understood. The police arrived 23 minutes later. They stayed for 6. One officer glanced around my apartment, wrote down the missing notebook, and asked whether I had forgotten where I put it. The other studied Adrian's coat, his watch, the 2 silent men in the hallway. Neither asked why men like that were standing outside my door. When they left, I locked it behind them. Then I turned on Adrian. This is your fault. He stood near the window, rain shadowing his reflection in the glass. Yes. The answer stopped me. I had expected denial. Control. Some cold explanation about choices and consequences. Instead, he accepted the blame like he had already calculated its weight. I went to work tonight, I said. That was all. Now someone has been inside my home. I know. No, you don't. My voice broke harder than I wanted. That notebook had letters from my father in it. His handwriting. Things I can't replace. Something shifted in Adrian's face. Small. But real. I'll find it. You can't promise that. No, he said quietly. But I can promise I won't stop looking. For a moment, the room lost its edges. Then one of his men entered and handed him a phone. Adrian listened without speaking. His expression closed. We're leaving. I'm not going anywhere with you. This location is compromised. And your solution is what? Put me somewhere with guards outside every door. If necessary. I stepped closer. No locked rooms. No taking my phone. No deciding where I go without telling me why. His man looked at me as if I had lost my mind. Adrian only watched. You're giving me conditions? I'm giving you the difference between protection and captivity. Silence stretched between us. Then he nodded. No locked doors. You keep your phone. You are informed before any move. The concession unsettled me more than resistance would have. We left through the back stairwell. His safe house was not a mansion. It was a quiet townhouse across the river, hidden between old brick buildings and bare winter trees. Inside, there were no paintings, no photographs, nothing personal enough to reveal who had lived there. Adrian gave me the upstairs bedroom and took the chair outside the door. I discovered that at 3 a.m. You have men downstairs, I said. He looked up from his phone. I do. Then why are you here? His eyes held mine. Because they broke into your home after you helped me. Not strategy. Not usefulness. Guilt. I sat on the top step, keeping distance between us. Samir used a phrase tonight, I said. When he mentioned the location. Adrian straightened. I closed my eyes, rebuilding the sentence from sound. He didn't say the transfer was moved to the north entrance. You translated north. I translated the word literally. The memory sharpened. But in Levantine shipping slang, that expression can mean the false gate. A decoy route used when someone expects surveillance. Adrian's phone was already in his hand. He called someone and gave 3 short orders. No names. No explanations. A minute later, his screen lit up with an incoming report. He read it once. Then again. What is it? I asked. His gaze rose slowly. 6 of my men were redirected tonight. By whom? He turned the phone toward me. The authorization code glowed on the screen. Marcus Kane. Adrian's face became unreadable. But his voice did not. Someone just moved my people toward an entrance that doesn't exist. The photograph did not make sense. Adrian carried my mother through the flames, one arm beneath her knees, blood running down the side of his face. Alive. Marcus watched me study it. You believed he abandoned her, he said. Adrian believed she escaped him. Both stories were useful. I unlocked locker 317. Inside sat a sealed evidence bag, a small tape, and a hospital bracelet bearing my mother's name. The date was 3 days after the warehouse fire. My breath stopped. She survived. For a while. Marcus's voice held no regret. I pressed play. My mother spoke through static. Adrian found me after the fire. He carried me out. He tried to get me to a hospital, but Marcus intercepted us. Behind me, Marcus's men shifted. Daniel stared at him with open horror. The recording continued. Marcus told Adrian I died before help arrived. Then he moved me under another name because he needed to know what evidence I had collected. My knees weakened. Every year I had imagined my mother leaving me by choice. Every year Adrian had imagined himself arriving too late. Marcus had built 2 prisons from one lie. You kept her alive, I whispered. Until she stopped being useful. Daniel pulled against the ropes. You murdered her. Marcus raised his weapon. No, I said. The word came from somewhere deeper than fear. Every eye turned toward me. You need me alive. His smile faded. My mother hid more than this. You still don't know where. It was a lie. But powerful men often believed secrets more than courage. Marcus hesitated. That was enough. The terminal windows exploded inward. Adrian's men entered through smoke and rain. The lights died. I dropped behind the lockers as gunfire struck metal above me. Daniel threw himself sideways, taking the chair with him. Adrian appeared through the darkness. Not like a king. Like a man who had already burned his throne. He reached me, cut Daniel free, then placed a drive in my hand. What is this? Everything. His financial records. His protected names. His crimes. The architecture of the empire Marcus had threatened to turn against me. You released it? It goes public in 6 minutes unless I stop it. Marcus emerged near the exit, weapon raised. You would destroy your father's legacy for her? Adrian stepped in front of me. No, his voice was steady. I'm destroying what you taught me to mistake for one. Marcus laughed bitterly. Tell her the rest. Tell her what you did after you carried Evelyn out. Adrian did not look away from me. I left her with Marcus while I went to stop the men hunting us. My heart twisted. He told me she died. I believed him because believing him was easier than admitting I had trusted the wrong man. And afterward? I asked. I used her evidence to take control of the organization. The final misunderstanding broke open. Adrian had not built his empire because my mother betrayed him. He had built it using the truth she died protecting. Then buried her name because remembering the source meant facing his shame. I turned her courage into my power, he said. That is the part no one forced me to do. Marcus fired. Adrian pushed me down. The shot struck his side. He remained standing long enough to disarm Marcus and force him to the ground. His men closed in, but Adrian stopped them from killing him. No more buried bodies, he said. Sirens approached in the distance. Daniel had activated the terminal's emergency transmitter. Adrian collapsed against me. Blood spread beneath my hands as I lowered him to the floor. His face had lost all color. The files, he whispered. Let them go public. They'll destroy you. They should. I pressed my hands harder against the wound. You don't get to decide that dying is accountability. His eyes found mine. For the first time, there was no power in them. Only truth. I never loved your mother, he said. But I owed her the man I failed to become. His fingers closed weakly around mine. And then I heard your voice. The upload timer on the drive reached 10 seconds. Adrian looked at me as the empire began to fall around us. Do not save my power, Claire. His breath caught. Save whatever is left of me. By sunrise, Adrian had changed the operation without telling Marcus. No alarms. No accusations. Only 3 quiet phone calls and a map spread across the safe house dining table. The false route remained active on every official system. Marcus would see the same names, the same vehicles, the same departure time. But the men were gone. Redirected before they reached the trap. I stood across from Adrian while he moved small black markers across the map. He had changed clothes sometime before dawn. Dark shirt. Sleeves rolled to his forearms. No jacket to soften the tension in his shoulders. What happens when Marcus realizes? I asked. He won't. You sound very certain. I need him to believe I still trust him. The words were controlled. His hand was not. For half a second, his fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Then released. 14 years, I thought. You could lie to a stranger and lose nothing. But betrayal only became betrayal when it came from someone who knew where you were vulnerable. A secure tablet sat between us, filled with shipping messages Adrian's staff had recovered from old archives. Arabic originals on the left. Marcus's summaries on the right. At first, the differences were small. A delay became a cancellation. A request became an order. Concern became disrespect. Each translation tilted the meaning only a few degrees. But repeated over months, a few degrees became an entirely different road. This one, I said, touching the screen. Adrian leaned closer. Samir's message referred to an inspection requested by port officials. Marcus had translated it as an inspection demanded by Samir's people. He made it sound like Samir was threatening you. He wanted me to pressure them. Or isolate them. Adrian's jaw hardened. We kept reading. Message after message. Not lies large enough to expose themselves. Lies designed to become decisions. By noon, the pattern was undeniable. Marcus had been controlling what Adrian believed long before Table 12. Adrian walked away from the screen. He stopped at the window, staring through the blinds at a street where nothing moved. 8 years ago, he said, Marcus dragged me out of a car before it burned. I remained silent. He stayed when everyone else ran. He helped build every legitimate company I own. Every route. Every alliance. His voice lowered. If he wanted money, he could have asked. Maybe it isn't money. He turned. You've known him for less than one night. I know what he changed. That doesn't mean you understand why. No. But neither do you. The room went still. I should have softened it. I didn't. You keep measuring today's truth against yesterday's loyalty, I said. They are not the same thing. His eyes sharpened. You think trust is simple because you have never had to build an empire with men who would sell your name for survival. And you think complexity makes dishonesty less dishonest. That world outside your window exists because men like me make choices people like you never have to see. People like me? The word struck somewhere old. I stepped back from the table. Women carrying plates while powerful men decide we are too insignificant to understand them? Regret flickered across his face, but I was already moving toward the stairs. Claire. I stopped without turning. Fear may explain why someone lies, I said. It does not make the lie true. For several seconds, only the clock answered. Then his phone vibrated. Once. Adrian looked down. Whatever he saw erased the anger from his face. He crossed the room and held the screen toward me. A photograph. Me, outside Bellamy House. Coffee in one hand. Study cards in the other. Taken from across the street 3 days before the meeting. My skin went cold. Below the image was a message from Marcus. She heard more than you think. I stared at the date. 3 days before I had entered the private room. 3 days before I had exposed his translation. He knew who I was, I whispered. Adrian's gaze stayed on the photograph. No, his voice had changed. It carried something deeper than suspicion now. Marcus chose you before you ever served our table. The photograph stayed between us like evidence from a crime neither of us understood. Adrian enlarged the image. My coffee cup. My study cards. The blue scarf I had almost left on the bus that morning. Someone had been close enough to capture details. Close enough to hear me practicing Arabic under my breath. I was listed in a scholarship profile, I said. The interpreter program posted it online last month. Adrian's eyes moved to me. What did it say? That I grew up in Amman. That my father worked with humanitarian courts. That I speak Arabic. The answer changed something in him. He picked up his phone. Find every person who accessed Bellamy House staffing records this week. A voice responded through the speaker. Then Adrian added, and pull security footage from 3 days before the meeting. He ended the call. You think Marcus arranged for me to work that table? I think coincidence has become expensive. My stomach tightened. The restaurant manager had called me in early that night. He had insisted I take table 12 even though another server was assigned to the private section. At the time, I thought he needed someone dependable. Now every ordinary detail felt staged. Why would Marcus want someone there who could expose him? He may not have wanted you to expose him. Adrian walked toward the map. He may have wanted you to hear enough to become useful later. As what? A witness. A distraction. Someone he could blame for leaking information. The room seemed to tilt. Marcus had not simply noticed me. He had placed me near danger and waited to see which way I ran. Adrian reached for his coat. You're leaving the city. No, his hand stopped. I have a plane ready. I said no. This is no longer a discussion. I stepped between him and the door. You promised not to make decisions about me without telling me why. I just told you why. You told me you're afraid. His expression hardened. I am trying to keep you alive. By making me disappear while Marcus stays close enough to rewrite everything? He won't stay close. Then use me. The words left my mouth before fear could pull them back. Adrian went completely still. He thinks I'm the weak point, I continued. Let him believe it. Let him contact me. Let him think I'm frightened enough to cooperate. No, he already chose me. We can make that choice cost him. No, this time the word cracked through the room. Not controlled. Not cold. Human. I stared at him. He looked away first. I have watched people become leverage, he said. It never ends the way they imagine. I am not your leverage. You are if I care whether you survive. The silence after that was almost unbearable. Neither of us moved. The confession had come without permission. Maybe that was why it felt true. I lowered my voice. Is that what this is? His jaw tightened. Strategy? I stepped closer. Guilt? He said nothing. Or do you need me alive because I'm useful? His eyes found mine. For the first time since Bellamy House, there was no calculation in them. Only conflict. You stood in a room full of men who could have ruined your life, he said, and told the truth anyway. That doesn't answer me. No, his voice dropped. It doesn't. A phone vibrated on the table. Mine. Both of us looked at it. Unknown number. An audio message. Adrian reached for the device, but I took it first. The recording began with static. Then Samir's voice filled the room, low and urgent, speaking Arabic. Claire, listen carefully. The betrayal began before the restaurant. Marcus is not acting alone. Adrian's face darkened. The message continued. You must leave before tomorrow night. And whatever he tells you, do not trust the man protecting you. The recording ended. I looked at Adrian. He stood only a few feet away. Powerful enough to command an entire city. Silent beneath one sentence. For the first time, I no longer knew whether I was safer beside him, or exactly where someone wanted me to be. The silence after Samir's message did not feel empty. It felt divided. Adrian stood across from me, but the room had changed. Every promise he had made. Every door he had opened. Every danger he had named. All of it now carried a second meaning. Who is he talking about? I asked. Adrian did not answer. That was the answer. I set the phone on the table. You know. I know what he might mean. Then say it. His gaze shifted toward the dark window. Marcus and I were not the only men who built the routes. The words came slowly. There was another partner. He disappeared years ago after selling information that got people killed. And Samir once worked for him. My chest tightened. So you knew Samir might be manipulating the meeting. I knew he had reasons to hate me. But you let me stand in that room without knowing any of this. I did not know you had been placed there. That is not the same thing. No, his voice hardened. It isn't. I waited for more. He gave me nothing. What happened to the other partner? Adrian's expression closed. I can't tell you. A bitter laugh escaped me. You can move me between safe houses. Search my life. Decide when I am in danger. But the truth still belongs only to you. It belongs to people who died because of it. And Marcus? His eyes sharpened. What about him? Did he help make that man disappear? Adrian looked at me for 1 second too long. The last piece of trust broke quietly. Not with shouting. Not with accusation. Just recognition. You are protecting him, I said. I am protecting you from information that cannot be taken back. You don't get to call secrecy protection every time the truth makes you uncomfortable. I grabbed my coat. He moved toward the door. Claire. Don't. You cannot leave alone. I can't stay with a man who decides which lies are acceptable. His face changed then. Pain, brief and unguarded. But he stepped aside. That hurt more. 2 hours later, I sat in the back corner of a 24-hour bakery across town. Samir had chosen the place. Public. Bright. Cameras over every exit. He arrived without a coat, rain darkening his shoulders. You came alone, he said in Arabic. Yes. That was dangerous. So was your message. He looked toward the window before sitting. The phrase I used was deliberate. The man protecting me. He nodded. In Arabic, protection can mean shelter. Or control. The danger is not always the man holding the weapon. Sometimes it is the man deciding which truths you are allowed to hear. Were you warning me about Adrian? Samir's fingers tightened around his coffee cup. I was warning you about what his protection could become. The answer chilled me. Then tell me which one. Before he could speak, the bakery lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A chair crashed. Someone shouted near the counter. Samir grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the kitchen. Back exit, he whispered. A figure appeared in the doorway. Samir shoved me behind a steel prep table. The next seconds came in fragments. Footsteps. A struggle. Glass breaking. Then silence. When I looked up, Samir was gone. My phone rang. Marcus. I answered because fear had already made the choice for me. His voice was almost gentle. Claire, Adrian has been lying to you since the restaurant. Where is Samir? Alive. For now. My stomach dropped. What do you want? Not from you. A pause. From him. Across the city, Adrian stood in the center of the safe house while Marcus's second call came through. A photograph appeared on his screen. Me, crouched beneath the bakery's emergency light. Then Marcus spoke. One choice, Adrian. His empire. Or my location. Marcus's men took me through the bakery kitchen and into a delivery van before I could reach the alley. They covered my eyes. They forgot my ears. For 20 minutes, I counted turns, traffic lights, the hollow echo beneath an overpass. When the van stopped, Salt and Diesel entered through the open door. The docks. They brought me into a warehouse where Marcus stood beneath a row of suspended lights. Samir was tied to a chair near the loading bay. Blood marked his collar, but his eyes were clear. Marcus smiled. You caused more trouble than expected. You selected me. I selected a witness Adrian would believe. The truth landed cold. Marcus had arranged my shift, leaked the meeting location, and mistranslated Samir on purpose. If Adrian entered the false route, Marcus would have him killed. If Adrian changed course, Marcus would blame the leak on the waitress who understood Arabic. Either way, I was meant to disappear. Why? I asked. Marcus's smile faded. Because Adrian built an empire and still believed loyalty made him untouchable. He turned to Samir and spoke rapidly in Arabic to the men near the loading doors. They assumed I was too frightened to listen. I wasn't. The original phrase from the restaurant returned. The false gate. Not a decoy entrance. A customs designation for cargo that officially did not exist. Marcus was moving Adrian's weapons through the north warehouse, then planting records that made Adrian responsible for a shipment Marcus had arranged with the partner Adrian believed had vanished years ago. Samir looked at me. The man protecting you, his message had said. He had meant Adrian, but not as the architect of the betrayal. Adrian's habit of protecting people by withholding the truth had made me doubt my own judgment. Marcus had counted on that doubt, using 14 years of false loyalty to keep himself close enough to shape every decision. I lowered my head and slipped my phone from my sleeve. One message. No names. No coordinates. Only the Arabic vocabulary phrase Adrian had tested me on at Bellamy House. Internal clearance. Second gate. Midnight. Then I added one sentence. Precision is closer than trust. I pressed send. Marcus noticed the movement. He crossed the space and tore the phone from my hand. You still think he is coming for you? No, I looked toward the warehouse doors. I think he is coming for the truth. The lights died. This darkness was different from the bakery. Organized. Outside, engines stopped at once. Marcus shouted orders. His men rushed toward the wrong entrance because I had quietly changed the directional labels on their printed route sheets while they argued beside Samir. Confusion moved faster than violence. By the time the emergency lights flickered on, Adrian stood inside the warehouse. Alone. Marcus raised his weapon toward me. Your companies, he said. Your routes. Every account. Transfer them now, or she disappears. Adrian looked at me. There was no apology in his face. No command. Only the answer he had been unable to give at the safe house. He placed a signed authorization on the floor and pushed it toward Marcus. Everything Marcus believed he would never surrender. The empire. The leverage. The power. Greed pulled Marcus's attention downward. He lowered the weapon just enough and bent to retrieve the papers. That was when Samir kicked the control switch beside his chair. The loading gates opened. Adrian's men entered from the real north access. Marcus's plan collapsed in seconds. But I barely saw it. I was staring at Adrian. He had not chosen his empire. He had chosen me. And the most frightening part was not what he had given up. It was how little he seemed to regret it. Marcus reached for the authorization papers. He never touched them. Adrian's men closed around the warehouse before the documents stopped sliding across the concrete. Samir tore one hand free from the loosened rope and pulled himself behind a steel support beam. Marcus looked toward the open loading gate. Then at Adrian. You would burn everything for her? Adrian did not answer immediately. His eyes found mine. Not the warehouse. Not the men surrounding us. Me. No, he said. You burned at the moment you used her to reach me. Marcus laughed, but the sound carried no confidence now. You still don't understand. I kept you alive for 14 years. You kept yourself necessary. The words landed harder than a threat. Marcus raised his weapon. Adrian's men reacted, but Adrian lifted one hand. No gunfire. No chaos. Only stillness. You lied because you believed I would choose vengeance, Adrian said. You built every escape around the man I used to be. Marcus's expression cracked. For the first time, I saw fear. Not fear of dying. Fear of becoming irrelevant. I stepped toward the desk where his open laptop displayed the shipping records. You changed translations, I said. But you never changed the original messages. Marcus turned toward me. I opened the folder Samir had identified and uploaded the files to 3 addresses: federal investigators, port security, and the attorney overseeing Adrian's legitimate companies. The customs codes. The false gate. The altered schedules. Every contradiction Marcus thought no one would understand. Preserved in both languages. You're a waitress, he said. The insult sounded smaller now. I was. I pressed send. The confirmation appeared on the screen. Samir exhaled from across the warehouse. Adrian looked at Marcus with an expression I could not read. Marcus waited for violence. So did everyone else. Adrian stepped aside. Take him alive. The order changed the room. Marcus stared at him. You've gone weak. No, Adrian said. I finally stopped letting men like you define strength. His people restrained Marcus and led him toward the loading doors. He shouted Adrian's name once. Adrian never turned. By the following morning, the city had begun swallowing the scandal. Investigations opened. Accounts froze. Men who had praised Marcus stopped answering his calls. Adrian lost routes, contracts, and companies tied to the deception. He kept the legitimate ones. More importantly, he kept his choice. 3 weeks later, I returned to my interpreter program. My recovered notebook sat on the desk beside me. Adrian's men had found it in Marcus's office, still holding my father's letters between its worn pages. After class, Adrian waited outside. No guards. No black cars blocking the street. Just a man in a dark coat standing beneath the pale winter light. He held out an envelope. Inside were documents for a new apartment, tuition paid in full, and enough money to disappear. I handed it back. I don't want repayment. What do you want? The question sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. Asking instead of deciding. I studied him. A man who had controlled rooms by entering them. A man who had surrendered an empire because one life had finally become more important than power. The truth, I said. Even when it costs you. He nodded. And a choice, I added. Mine. Another nod. Slower this time. Then he spoke in Arabic. Will you walk with me? No command. No hidden meaning. I answered in the same language. Yes. But beside you. Something softened in his face. We walked into the city together. He had switched languages because he believed no one else at the table mattered. In the end, the woman he overlooked became the one voice he trusted without translation. Power had taught him how to make people listen. Love taught him when to be silent.